Excellent. We can start. Hooray. I feel like I'm on a TV show or something. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's start. Okay. Today I want to talk to you about the future of English. I want to talk about English language teaching generally, but particularly now as well, before we talk about the future. I want to tell you about a project I'm working on called The Future of English, but more importantly, I want to talk about implications for teachers moving forward and your thoughts on that. I realise that some of you are really far behind the back, but if you just want to contribute, just put your hands up and I'm happy to come over to you. All right, let's just talk about English language teaching generally. And I am talking generally and at the moment globally before the pandemic, okay? So, if we think about the resources that we use in our classrooms, we use course books. Course books are the backbone of a lot of teaching all over the world, all right? We use boards, blackboards, whiteboards, electronic boards, it doesn't matter. Most classrooms, not all in the world, have boards. Some education systems have invested in computer labs, right? So where you have a room full of computers for students to either use a computer on their own, just to have access to the hardware and the internet, or to connect with other students in other countries. Some education systems have invested in tablets, right, for learning and teaching because they are, number one, more cost effective, and number two, possibly more flexible than laptops or computers. Mobile phones, even before the pandemic, some teachers were leveraging on the fact that students had mobile phones, use them to engage with them, use them for lessons and things like that. So mobile phones are not that new. And the internet, even before the pandemic, I don't know about you, certainly using the internet to complement the materials I had in the classroom. So this is a general picture, but it's really important to remember that not every teacher in the whole world has access to all of this. Just hold that thought. So they're resources. So let's talk about methodology, right? Again, I'm talking globally. So in terms of methodology, some teachers are very teacher-centered. Some teachers are very learner-centered. Some teachers are very learning-centered. And some teachers are very flexible and use all of the above. There's no judgment, that's just what happens, right? Assessment, we've just had a very interesting plenary about assessment. I really enjoyed that. So whether we like it or not, whether it's classroom-based and formative, whether it's high stakes and summative, a lot of teaching around the world is assessment-based. We are assessing all the time. Again, no judgment, that's what happens. Much of the teaching pre-pandemic was face-to-face. Not all of the teaching. There was online teaching happening, whether it was fully online or blended, but it was happening very sporadically. So generally, all this was happening, right, before the pandemic. Who could have predicted the pandemic? Who could have predicted that literally almost overnight, we all went online? Okay? What has changed in English language teaching since the pandemic? And that is a genuine question. You can't hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay, fine. What has changed in English language teaching since we got back to our classrooms? So I'm not talking about us having to go online, because now I think we're all back in the classroom, is that right? Okay, so what has changed? Put your hands up in your practice. The children have changed. How have the children changed? I'll repeat what you say. Okay. Okay. All right. But they're physical things, right? So the learners have changed. Learners have changed. And if I had a gold star, I'd give you one. So learners have changed in terms of illnesses. Some of them have changed in terms of lack of confidence. Some of them have changed in terms of they're more confident, but we'll talk about that. So learners have changed. What else has changed? Acceptance level to digital teaching, has it got higher or lower? All right, great. Had another gold star, I'd give it to you. You're completely right. It's the acceptance level of using digital teaching or learning or materials in our classrooms. What else has changed? Yeah. Okay, so this lovely lady said, in terms of teacher efficacy, the need to professionally develop, you think that's increased or decreased? Increased, okay. So I think generally, and I agree with you, I think there's an understanding among the profession that we need to develop in different ways according to where we are at the moment. Right, that's fantastic. Let's move on. So, David Graddle, in terms of predicting the future of where English language was going, in 2006 published English Next. This was commissioned by the British Council. David predicted the trends for English language over the next 15 years. He wrote it in 2006. 15 years was up in 2021. In 2021, we were deep in lockdown. So what did the British Council do? We decided that that was a good time, amongst all this change and chaos, to actually revisit his trends and see where we got to. So let me just tell you very quickly about this project, and then we'll have a bit more of a discussion. So what we aim to do with this project is really provide insights as to where the English language is going and what the implications are, not only for teaching, but education as a whole, for learners, for employers. What does it mean? We want to help our findings inform language policy and education reform. But we also want to generate a research agenda where actually we can map the trends. We can see what's happening on an ongoing basis to the English language. How is it changing? How is English changing in Malaysia compared to Singapore, compared to England, compared to Australia? What's happening? 3 phases of the project. So the first phase, we looked at David's trends and we evaluated them. And one of the things we found on phase 1 is actually there isn't a great deal of data out there about the English language. It just isn't there. In phase 2, at the end of phase 1, we also ended up with our own predictions. David had 14, we ended up with 16. In phase 2, we organized roundtable discussions all over the world with policymakers and influencers. And we asked them what they thought about our predictions. And at the moment, we're in phase 3, where we've offered research grants to 4 research teams who are doing research all over the world about the English language. And there are over 30 researchers collecting data in over 40 countries. Those are 3-year projects, so we're doing them long term, but hopefully they'll give us lots of information about where English is going. I'm involved predominantly in phase 2. And what we're doing at the moment, we're analysing the findings, and we should have a book published next spring, I think, where you can read all about the project. 14 roundtables all over the world. Now, the reason we talk to policymakers and influencers first is because we wanted an overview of national and regional policies to do with English, the practice and how it's being used. However, right from the very beginning, we always knew that we had to talk to teachers. You're at the chalk face. You're the ones who are using English in the classroom every day with your students. So this phase now is about talking to teachers. And that's why this workshop is called Have Your Say. And I'll tell you how you can do that in just a moment, because your opinions are very, very important to us. Not in terms of how you're using English yourselves, but how you influence the use of English in your students, okay? English language teachers. Here's a question for you. During the next 15 years, the number of people learning English will A, increase, B, decrease, C, stay the same. Just think for 30 seconds, just have a think while I drink some water. All right, put your hands up if you think A, increase. Put your hands up. Okay, put your hands up if you think B. Put your hands up if you think C. No, you can't answer twice. Okay, one lady thinks C, but predominantly we think it's going to increase. Can somebody tell me why? Can anybody tell me why they think that? This is an opinion. There is no right or wrong. Yeah. Okay, so it's a cycle. The more we use technology, and as somebody said, it's more acceptable in the classroom, the more we use these apps and things, younger people are using it, and the more these apps and things and products are being used, the more they're being developed. So it's a cycle. And a lot of these things on phones, say that again? Most of these things are in English. Not all of these things, but most of them are in English. So in this room, we think it will increase. Third question, sorry. The single biggest change to English language learning and teaching will be in the area of A, technology, B, equity of access, C, assessment, D, pedagogy, or E, other. 30 seconds, have a think. Who thinks A? A, put your hands up. Who thinks that technology is going to be the biggest change? A few of you. Who think B, equity of access? One teacher, well done, brave teacher. Excellent. What about C, assessment? Oh, a few saying assessment, okay. What about D, pedagogy? Okay. And E, other, any others that aren't up there? All right. Would anybody like to justify why they put their hand up when they did? I'm quite interested in pedagogy. Who put your hands up for pedagogy? Tell me why you think it's going to be changing. No? No offers? No? Okay, I don't have the answers to this, right? We're collecting the data now, but I'd be really interested to know what you think in just a moment. All right. So, what does this mean for language teachers? Now, from the data that we have collected so far in this project, one thing has become very, very clear. that teachers are still at the heart of the teaching and learning process. Even though we did go online, even though we are using more technology in the classroom, both inside and outside the classroom, teachers are still at the heart of the teaching and learning process. And for me, that's incredibly, incredibly important for many, many reasons. But again, I'm talking globally, not in Malaysia. There are issues with capacity. There are many countries where there aren't enough English teachers. And there are some countries where there are not enough skilled English teachers. Yeah? So two slightly different things. You have an English teacher, you have a teacher who has the competencies to do what you need them to do in the classroom. So not everywhere is that possible. Technology. Now, we've been talking about technology, and it is, apart from assessment, the thing that everybody's talking about at the moment. But for me, there are more questions than solutions around technology at the moment. Yes, it has been an enabler. Yes, it has meant that during the pandemic, we could teach our students. It has meant that during the pandemic, our students can learn on their phones. It has meant that during the pandemic, if you haven't been with your family, you can still communicate with them, and that's amazing. But what has it meant for those people who haven't had a mobile phone, who haven't had access to Wi-Fi, who haven't had platforms to do their teaching and learning on? So in that respect, for a lot of people, it's been a disruptor along with the pandemic. And what does it mean for people who need extra assistance to access a laptop, who have maybe impairments? Technology doesn't have all the answers for them as well. So in terms of equity of access, there are questions around technology. The final question around technology, and this comes from the data, is quality of provision. So there are two things around quality of provision. One is that during the pandemic, many companies produced many products for teaching and learning. Not all of them of the quality we would like, number one. Number two, many teachers went online. Not all of those teachers were 100% confident or 100% competent at teaching online. And sometimes that compromised the learning experience. I'm not saying they didn't try their best, and I'm not saying the learning experience wasn't good, but the learning experience for many students around the world was less equal when we went online. Yeah? So lots of questions around technology. And don't get me wrong, I like technology. I'm just trying to be objective about it. Development and training. We've talked a lot during this conference about development and training, and it really, for me, is at the core of the issue. And again, two things around development and training. One, what has everything we've talked about mean for pre-service education in getting teachers ready for coming into the classroom in the first place? What has to change in pre-service education in order for us to be ready to teach those 21st century skills that were talked about during the opening keynote? What has to change in pre-service training to enable our teachers to be ready to incorporate the informal learning that we've all been hearing about into the more formal learning that is our education system? Because that is slightly different development to maybe even 5-10 years ago, right? So that's one thing. So that's pre-service. Let's talk about in-service. What has to change in in-service development in order for us to continue teaching at the quality we're already teaching at? And one third thing for me that is very important, and I think it's already been mentioned here, as individuals, as teachers, as trainers, as educators, what is our responsibility in keeping our skills updated? Is there a responsibility? Put your hands up, and this is a genuine question again, no right or wrong. Put your hands up if you think that we should be responsible for our own development. Yeah. Quite a few of us believe that. Not entirely. I'm not saying the education system doesn't have a responsibility. Of course they do. But we also have to have a responsibility because we have chosen this profession, right? So, factors influencing us, policy, we've all talked about that. There are decisions that are not in our control. So, not having UPSR, for example, is not in our control, but it's the decision that we have to work with. So, policies are always going to be there, but what's important for me is how we respond to those policies in the classroom. I'm talking about teacher agency. You being the agents of your own change. How do you respond to those policies? Do you embrace them and work within them for the best of your students? Or do you resist and think, I'm not sure about this, and delay a little bit? How do you respond? The learner, we've already talked about the learner changing. And the learner has changed since the pandemic. Some learners more confident, some learners less confident. A lot of learners have taken learning into their own hands. They're more aware of the opportunities available to them. They're more aware of what it is that they want because they've literally lost a couple of years, right? So the learner has changed. How do you as educators respond to that in the classroom? And the teacher. For me, you are the key to the classroom. You always have been the key. The way that you respond and adapt and develop is the key to any education system in the entire world. Simple as that. And if anybody were to tell me otherwise, I'm happy to have a conversation, but likelihood I would disagree. Okay, teacher beliefs. Put your hands up the last time you thought about what you believe about teaching and learning. Has anybody ever thought about their beliefs as a teacher? Yeah, one person. Thank you. It's really important to articulate what you believe teaching and learning to be. What is the purpose of it? For example, let me give you an example of one of my beliefs. I believe that every single learner can learn. They may not all learn the same thing. They may not all learn the same way, but they all have the potential to learn something. I believe that I have a very, very active role in the classroom and that I am a very big influence to my learners. That's what I believe. So I want you to think about what are your beliefs in the classroom, because your beliefs translate to your classroom practice. If you believe that you don't have a very big role, you'll be very passive in the classroom. If you believe that you are a change agent, if you believe that you can have influence, that will influence your classroom practice in a big way. Now, if you haven't ever thought about what your beliefs are, that doesn't matter. You can start now. But whether we like it or not, whether we have articulated it or not, our beliefs about teaching and learning and education influence what we do in the classroom on a daily basis, right? And what we do in the classroom on a daily basis translates to our attitude to professional development. So your beliefs inform your classroom practice, which informs your professional development, which then, again, as you learn, you revisit your beliefs. They may change as you learn more. So it goes round in a very positive cycle. So think about what you believe about teaching and learning. Use your beliefs to review your classroom practice. And use the evaluation of our classroom practice to take ownership of our own development and drive the change that we want to be. So I'm talking about teachers being agents of change for yourself, but change for your students. All right. Any questions up to this point? And I realize I don't have very long to go. All right. So that's what I believe about teachers. I'd like us to think now what we believe about the English language. And I'm talking, we can talk about here in Malaysia, we can talk about globally. For 2 minutes, I'm just going to give you some time. Talk to the person next to you, behind you, in front of you. How do you think the language has changed, even in the last 5 years? If it has, it may not have. 2 minutes, just have a think. How has the language changed? I'm going to give you 2 minutes. All right, that was a really quick 2 minutes, sorry. And I know you are talking, but I am conscious about time and I do want to do one activity with you. All right, how's the language changed? Anybody? No, not changed? Ah, okay. So this teacher says students are using more short forms because they're influenced by this. How does that translate into their work in the classroom? Do we accept more short forms? No. No. Okay. So they bring short forms into the classroom, but we have to help them understand that actually that's for outside the classroom, right? That's one change. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. Ah, yeah. Brilliant, thank you. So redefining existing words with new current meanings, right? So redefining new words, existing words with new current meanings, that's change. So again, what do we do in the classroom about that? Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, so we need to set boundaries and parameters in the classroom and help students to understand, register, yeah? What's acceptable in this space is different to what's acceptable in your space, yeah? What else has changed? I'm going to come to the back, great. You're going to have to shout at me. So from other domains or other languages or both? Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So what this lovely teacher said is that students are bringing vocabulary from other domains and other languages into the classroom. And I think that's really, really important. And where do they get this vocabulary from? From songs, from the internet, social media. So, and one important thing you said to me is that they use language that you've never used in the classroom. Is that a positive thing or not? Okay. All right. So it can be positive, but not if it's not language you don't want to focus on, right? So again, it's about setting those parameters. You can't reject what students bring into the classroom because that's demotivating, right? But what you do need to do is set boundaries, have conversations. And one of the things I think the learner has changed in is that receptiveness to have a conversation, to understand why they can use something, why something is acceptable, why something is not acceptable. So as a teacher, we're talking about engaging with your learners in a different way than we used to before. It's not us just saying, this is right and this is the way you do it. It's about having a conversation about what is acceptable and why, and what is not acceptable and why not. Has anything else changed in terms of language? Yes. G to G? Oh, okay. So in their writing, you mean? Okay, so they're writing SMS style or short form, yeah? Like using, instead of two, they're using the number two. Okay, so short form. Again, what do we do in the classroom? Have that conversation, set those parameters, and say to them, yes, that is acceptable, but not in this situation, maybe in that situation. So the language is changing, not from us, but from our learners, because they are changing, because they've had experiences during the pandemic that they would maybe otherwise wouldn't have if the world hadn't changed. Okay, I know time is running on, and I would like to do one activity with you. What I'd like to do, everybody's got some paper, right? This is a group activity. You can do it in twos, or you can do it in threes, or you can do it in fours. On your piece of paper, can you write the word teacher in a column? T-E-A-C-H-E-R. Teacher. 7 minutes. I've got 7 minutes, I'm told. So you better write fast, guys. I've got 7 minutes. Teacher. T-E-A-C-H-E-R. I would do this together if we've only got 7 minutes. Share the work. Right, what I'd like, for each letter, I'd like you to write a sentence. So your first sentence has to begin with T. Your second sentence has to begin with a word that begins with E. Each sentence has to be about your role as a teacher in a post-pandemic classroom. Does that make sense? Each sentence has to be about your role as a teacher in a post-pandemic classroom. You've got 5 minutes. Off you go. I'm here if you want some help. Work together, it's easier. Right on your own? Okay. Teacher. It can sentence phrase, it doesn't matter. It can be a phrase as well. Yeah. So, okay, time manager. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. No. Anything. Phrases is fine. You're doing it together. Great.
Yes.
Very nice. I like that. Well done. Are you okay? Brilliant. Brilliant.
Am I on the right track? Ops action. Be ready.
What's this one?
Humor.
Great.
Energetic. Always be ready. Whatever.
What's your name?
Mala. Evolves action. Need to be charismatic.
Thank you, Mala. I'm going to turn this. 2 minutes. They're rushing me, so I'm rushing you. Alternatives, right? That's nice. That's really nice. Thank you. Just see the time. One more minute. I know it's the fastest 5 minutes in the world. Sorry, fastest 5 minutes in the world. I'm coming. Hold on. Say that again. I want to comment on this. What's your name? Krishna? This one, this team. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop you guys. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm really, really sorry to have rushed you. I'm going to just read out a couple of examples. But one thing that I always say in my training sessions, I love this actually. This is not a criticism. This is wonderful. You can give the same instructions to a group of people. They will all do things differently. And I love that. So can I just read 2 examples? And then if anybody else wants to read out this kind. So this is Marla. And she's put, teaching involves action. Teachers have to be charismatic, they have to be humorous, energetic, and they have to be ready. So we didn't have sentences, but we have words. Can we have a round of applause for Marla? So I like that. And this one is Krishna and her friends at the back over there. All right. Talented we can be. Efficient we must be. Adaptable to changes. Committed to duties. Honesty, the best policy. Enjoying teaching and learning. Respect we should gain. Thank you, I love that. I'll give these back to you. Thank you so much, that's brilliant. Anybody want to read theirs? Or want me to read it? I don't mind. Yes, do you want me to? Ladies, would you like me to? I'm going to try. Unless you want to shout. No? Okay, lovely ladies at the front. Teachers always review what we do in the classroom, ever ready to produce engaging classroom or online activities. I like that. Oh, thank you. We have a submission here. Assess pupils fairly and equally, adaptable to change, committed towards teaching profession, health conscious, current situations, encouraging pupils to reach their potential, reflect on pupils' performance regularly, respect we should gain. That's fantastic. Thank you. A round of applause. Last one, because I'm going to get thrown off the stage in a minute. Teach effectively on all language skills. Evaluate outcomes to fit reality. Oh, I like that. Accept changes to how students respond to you. Change your beliefs if it inhibits learning. Brilliant. That's lovely. Help students when they need you the most. Exchange knowledge with students. Respect your students as they might know something you don't. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm just finishing. Hold on. Right. Future of English. Have your say. Do not... Oh, okay, you can. Scan this QR code now. It will take you to a microsite about the project. There is a very short survey for teachers. Tell us what you think. We really want to know what you think. But more importantly, I don't have a slide for it, but can I give you my email address? If you have thoughts, I would love for you to just share these with me and just keep in touch. Right, mina.patel@BritishCouncil, one word, .org. I'm sorry my session was a bit shorter than planned. Thank you very much for your input. Lovely to have met you, and take care. Keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Miss Mina Patel.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the end of the morning session. You may now enjoy your tea break and do return